in the last 1 year.
That President Muhammadu Buhari inherited a frail economy is not in doubt. Despite that, the nation's economy, which recorded a growth of 6% in 2014, has been on a downward slide due to some external and internal factors. The last 1 year can be described as the most challenging for the present administration in its 6 years in office, and that's no thanks to the global pandemic that has ravaged the world. Before COVID-19, the Nigerian economy had been projected to grow by 2.1% in 2020, but that did not happen. Instead, the economy plunged into a recession for the second time in 5 years. This was largely due to the fall in prices of crude oil on account of falling global demand and containment measures to fight the spread of COVID-19.
In terms of response to COVID-19, they followed the advice that most of us analysts gave at the time, that we should have a clearly articulated stimulus, package, but also to ensure that that stimulus package is not just any amount brought up arbitrarily, that it should be a minimum certain percentage of the GDP of Nigeria in 2019, because that was the pattern governments all around the world did it. So eventually they did that. Also, in responding to the economy when it went into technical recession by September 2020. It also was very good in terms of the plan that the government came up with, which also is the typical, we call it the textbook solution to dealing with recession. Because the real challenge there is not allowing recession to go further into a slump. That means you want to ensure you shunt the economy from recession to recovery, which of course they also achieved.
The bad news, however, is that the year 2021 so far is not showing much deviation from the previous year, given the leading economic indicators. The first quarter GDP data shows the economy is still anemic. Nigeria's debt stock is up by 20%. Unemployment rate is at an all-time high of 33.3%. Although the inflation rate moderated in April, Nigeria's inflation level still put the country amongst the top percentile of African countries with the highest level of inflation.
The fact that you exited a recession does not mean that you've got anywhere near what we call optimality. The economy is still performing suboptimally, and because potential GDP is going at about 8%, while real GDP is still coming at almost below 1%.
Beyond COVID, many expected the government to fast-track the implementation of its homegrown economic sustainability plan. But the proxies which validate or repudiate the direction of the leading economic indicators leave less to be desired. The management of the country's foreign exchange market in the last 1 year has been of great concern to many. The oil and gas sector, which is the country's main source of revenue, has also been a source of concern over the government's deregulation program, which has left many more confused, particularly in the management of petrol prices.
We have seen some interventions on the part of the federal government, the economic sustainability plan, but in most of these, there is always a gap between what the plans are, what is documented as policy, and what actually is the impact that we feel. We had a great deal of issues with the policy environment, with the regulatory environment. For instance, the foreign exchange policy environment was quite a major challenge, especially for businesses in the last 1 year. We had serious issues with forex liquidity in the foreign exchange market. We had serious issues with the depreciating currency, and all of this also contributed significantly to the pressure of inflation that we have had in the last few years.
But is there a light at the end of the tunnel in all of these?
I won't be as bullish as to say that there's a flashlight coming at the end of the tunnel, but I do know that there are flickers of hope at the end of the tunnel. Why do I say this? I say this because, one, the growth trajectory in the second, third, and fourth quarters are going to be much higher than that in the first quarter. Two, the momentum, what we call growth momentum, would have kicked in. However, there's a caveat. If for any reason, and we hope not, that we have a second wave of a viral infection like what happened in Brazil, South Africa, and India, we could have a situation where the growth is stalled. And the last thing we need at this point is a stalled growth. We need a stalled growth as much as we need a bullet in our heads.
Meaning the country cannot afford a stalled growth at this point. Time, they say, is of the essence. All eyes are now on the country's policymakers. Their actions over the next couple of months will determine if Nigeria will join the League of Nations that have successfully turned their economies around after the COVID-19 pandemic. Chimezie Obi Wago, Channels Television News.